Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield as much time as he may consume to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Will Hurd. He's a member of the Committee on Homeland Security, and he's also the author of this bill.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to Representative Sherman for his support of this bill. And I'd like to thank Chairman Royce not only for his support of this bill, but for everything that he does on his committee to make sure that our allies know that they can trust us and that our enemies know they should fear us. Last month, terrorists struck again in the heart of Europe. Their attack in Brussels was part of a wider ISIS campaign to ramp up external operations. Already the group has been tied to more than 80 terrorist plots or attacks against the West. This is an unprecedented figure. We have been sounding the alarm here in Congress about the rising tide of terror, as well as the global security gaps being exploited by extremists. My bill, H.R. 4403, would help close one of those major loopholes to make it harder for terrorists to cross borders. This bill was a recommendation of the bipartisan task force on combating terrorists and foreign fighter travel on which I served. In our final report in September, we found that gaping security weaknesses overseas, especially in Europe, are putting the US Homeland in danger by making it easier for aspiring foreign fighters to migrate to terrorist hotspots and for jihadists to return to the West. I saw firsthand that our partners are in a pre-9/11 mindset and that many of them have failed to conduct adequate counterterrorism screening. For instance, key operatives behind the Paris and Brussels attacks managed to travel back and forth to Syria and throughout Europe undetected, even though some were on terrorist watch lists. This should not just be a wake-up call. It should be a call to action. My bill would allow the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State to develop specially tailored open-source watch listing and screening systems to help our foreign partners disrupt terrorist travel. We have an interest in providing it to several foreign countries, and we should do that. However, as a matter of overarching federal policy, this bill does not choose open source over proprietary. Indeed, the federal government should consider proprietary and open source software and make an educated choice on which one fits the need the best. In this case, providing our partners with software they trust simply makes sense. Thousands of ISIS fighters have Western passports, and if our overseas partners don't stop them first, we might have to confront them here at home. Yet many governments lack the capacity to properly vet travelers and weed out known or suspected jihadists. That is why we must act today on this legislation and send a clear signal to our allies that America is ready to lead this fight. I want to thank my fellow members on the task force for their hard work, and I want to particularly thank Mr. Vella and Mr. Keating on the Democratic side for their leadership and support for this legislation. I urge my colleagues to vote for this measure, and I yield back.